Yeah, I was told to come over here and say something about Paul Campbell, because we're so close. So I definitely needed to do this.
Tonight on Retiring Minds, a man who spent 46 years in prison, public television, Paul Combel.
He shot the back seat, as he tells you, over and over again in the Air Force in Vietnam, and came here 46 years ago. Hasn't been able to find a job since.
I have had the pleasure of working with Paul for 35 years, which is hard for me to believe, and he has been a joy to work with, except for that little disgruntled period, which I would say started probably around 1981 or 1982 and lasted until about 4 weeks ago when he told me he was ready to retire.
It's been 41 years since we've been knowing each other, and that happened first when you came down to the Rivergate at the Convention Center, where Channel 12 was doing a show called the Food Fest, and I was the host, and that's where we first met, 41 years ago.
I have known Paul Combel since the late 1970s. Very fortunately, we've worked on a whole lot of documentaries together. Between documentaries and specials, I'd say about 50.
First met Paul in 1979, October 29th.
I met Paul Combel when I started at WYES in 1981. And Paul Combel and Dave Landry were sharing an office at the time and for many, many years. And everybody always said Paul and Dave, Paul and Dave. I think it was 6 months before I even knew which one was Paul and which one was Dave.
I started at YES, this would have been in 1981, and I came from a newsroom which was loud and noisy and raucous and just a lot of noise. And I come to WYES and it's kind of quiet. But then every now and then I would hear this really loud, weird noise, and it was coming down the hall. And that was Paul and Dave and John Byer.
I met Paul Combel in 1986. He immediately referred me to Mark Moore to do shooting for me. I think he thought I was one of Peggy's minions.
I met Paul when I first started with WYES back in April of 1987.
I met Paul in 1988, but I certainly don't remember anything about that.
I met Paul, I guess, when I first went to Channel 12 as a young high school student in my Jesuit high school uniform. And I was thinking back 46 years of his career and 20-something years of my career. So he's been there longer than I've been alive.
I don't know how long he's been at Channel 12, but I know he's been there longer than I've been on Earth. And I know he planted that oak tree out front.
I wondered if I should even be included in this video, having only 10 years experience knowing you.
When I came a few years ago, I was told I have to meet Paul Combel because he's a fixture at WYES. And I was told he had the same kind of contract as the Pope, forever. So I never really expected him to retire. But then Pope Benedict bailed out, so Paul probably said, why not me?
When I think of the list of things that Paul has done over the years, and I think partly that's, what is so great about Paul is that nobody else at other stations in town, I work now at Channel 4, has had really the mix of things that Paul has done over his career. The great one-hour programs, the documentaries with John Byer, the great shows with Peggy and Terry and Barbara in the last few years.
20 years of Rex, and then probably almost 1,000 stepping outs. So Paul certainly has been very much a part of my life.
One thing I have learned about you is your favorite subject is shooting food, and a chef cooking it makes it even better.
Over the last decades, Paul has literally worked on hundreds of national cooking episodes from WYES. Everywhere from the Great Chef series to Justin Wilson. We did 5 series with Chef Paul Prudhomme, and Paul was an integral part of that, of course. We did the John Besh series, 2 of those. Most recently, the Kevin Belton series as well.
Well, he always had the spoon in the top pocket for the cooking shows. He was always ready to get into a dish.
And in addition to that, not only membership drives and probably, as he feels, millions of hours of auction as well. Not only showboat auctions, but also the art auctions. So Paul's been in the middle of every single kind of production that we've done at WYES over these last 45 years. And that's really an amazing, amazing thing to be able to say.
Every time he'd introduce me to somebody, it was always You know, I warned him not to get in this business.
I have walked in the shadows of Paul Combel, walked behind Paul Combel, carried Paul Combel's tripod.
He had us practice with the garden hose, learning how to over and under with the garden hose.
Paul taught me a whole lot about the industry. He taught me what a C-47 was.
Framing and composition, nose room, headroom, if someone looked this way to compensate for that, and headroom.
The #1 rule in lighting, flood it and shoot it at 2.8.
One of the most important things in TV production, especially if you happen to be on camera, is lighting. Thanks for making me look good.
He probably gave me the most influential advice in my career anyone ever has. We were shooting with Peggy and I was a grip, and I had designs on being a director. So Peggy was lining up a shot and I saw an opportunity to visually contribute an idea, and I did so, and Peggy was very welcoming of it. And Paul quietly did as she asked, based on my suggestion. And then later on that day, and I'll never forget it, he said to me, and I quote, "Oh man, shut the f up, Jesus!" And that is why I have spent the rest of my career in post.
One thing I did learn from Paul was to be the referee, to be the diplomat in between Paul and Peggy, who were sort of like oil and water. I love them both, but yeah, there's a little oil and water there. Peggy, the creative, the spur of the moment. You know, Peggy goes in with a plan, but the plan sometimes is changing. Can we get one more shot? Can I ask one more question?
He's a stickler about things being done a certain way, to an extent. In other words, the extent being if it's 11:02 and we're not on our way to lunch, there's an issue.
You know, you don't go past 11:15 because that's lunchtime.
Lunch at 11, I mean, that's it. Hell or high water, you know that it's 11 o'clock.
No matter what we were in the middle of, no matter who was sitting in that chair, no matter whether it was the mayor, the president, you know, whoever might have been some, 95-year-old for one of Peggy's documentaries, so we had to make sure we got the memories from something from that person. 11 o'clock came, we were stopping.
His stories towards the end of the day would be, it's almost Miller time, but he would definitely wait till 5 o'clock for that.
His attitude kind of changes around 4:45. If he can't see the light at the end of the proverbial day, if you can't see the tunnel and it's getting close to 5 o'clock, you could tell his attitude and his demeanor kind of shift.
It's like one of those horses that you ride and you turn back to the stables and they gallop home. Yeah, he was like that on a shoot. He kept looking forward to the last shot of the day so he could have a beer.
You have to make sure that he, by the end of the day, is going to end his day on time.
To always be done by 5 o'clock, to never let it go past 5 o'clock, to make sure when 5 o'clock comes you are done.
For Miller time, definitely, man needs to have his beer.
And he always kept a full ice chest in his van just to be sure that Miller time came on time.
Apparently, that Miller time must be the fountain of youth, the elixir, because he still looks like a little kid.
The film room, which was just for Dave and Paul and John, basically, where they hid all the creative magazines that they would look at.
It was all the foldouts of Playboy magazine that you could find places on the wall for.
There would be all kinds of noises emanating from that room as they were cutting their films. And at first it was kind of alarming, and then I realized, that's just the guys doing their stuff.
It was a place nobody really wanted to go into that cared about hygiene or life necessarily. It was pretty ugly in there.
Every now and then you get a glimpse in there, in that room, and it would be just a growing mound of outtakes, of film, just growing and growing and growing. And when they'd open that door, you'd also get a smell.
One day, you'll remember, Miriam Katz walked in, because no one really walked in your room because the edit room was always pitch black with a few lights on. But Miriam flicked on the light switch and her mouth dropped open and she almost had a coronary on the spot.
But ultimately out of that room with Paul and Dave and John came some incredible, incredible programs, beautiful, beautiful programs.
Paul's very habitual, and that worked well in the military. It kind of worked well at WYES. We used to go to Landry's restaurant on Harrison Avenue, which is long since gone, but he would eat there every day. Soon he was going to Lakeview Harbor every day, usually to get a $100 hamburger. That's why his relationship with John Byer was unique, because John was anything but the 9-to-5 punch clock civil servant type of guy. He didn't have any boundaries. So how those two were able to work that out is beyond me. I don't know. But they worked well together.
Paul and Dad were very close, and you could just sense the depth and the significance of their friendship.
They were obviously part of the cool kids because they hung out with John Byer, who was like the big producer at WYES. He was like this kind of tortured genius, and part of his creative process was like smoking cigars and a lot of drinking and a lot of late nights at the Lots of Luck Social Club.
Everybody would make a mad dash to the bar room down the street called Lots of Luck Social Club, and that's where we met Axel and Carlos and a whole list of characters. They ended up doing The Men of LSU. They did Pete as a follow-up about Pete Fountain. Got to ride on the bus and drink with all the crazies on the bus. It led to more fun productions. Gators of Gaines.
Hot Stuff, The Baratarians, Dukes from Dixieland, Jazz Excursions. The list goes on. And these were really terrific projects. And you know, a lot of them they did shoot in film.
John gave Paul and Dave both the freedom to do some creative stuff and to respect their opinion.
The result was always beautiful and just really, really a beautiful thing to watch when it was all put together.
Paul would miss a lunch every now and then with John.
When I first started working at WYES, I was in the public information promotion department, if you will, and certainly in awe of cultural producer John Byer and Paul Combel and Dave Landry and everybody who were working hard on these amazing cultural documentaries. So it was with great admiration and, oh, wow, look what they're doing. That certainly served as an inspiration and for what I guess I do today.
When John Byer left, eventually Paul transitioned into working with Peggy Scott Laborde, who's incredibly talented, but the exact opposite of John Byer in practically every way. I always said, in my opinion, this was Paul's Vietnam, and Paul was in Vietnam.
One thing about Paul, as we're looking back on 46 years of his career at WYES, to me, which I share, and I think a lot of you share, is the pride that he had in the place. You know, we laugh about the grumbling and the Miller time and lunchtime, 11 o'clock, everything stopped, and 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, everything stopped. But Paul really had such a pride in WYES and what he did. And you could tell, even if you talk about some of the shows from the early days, things that maybe I would not have known about, and he would tell me stories about things that he did with John Byer, the Pete Fountain show and the early programs, the Baratarians, and some of those documentaries from the early days on film, truly a cinematographer, which Paul really is and always has been. But just the pride that he had in the place. I also think about after Katrina, rebuilding the station and everything from the cabinets that Paul had a hand in building to the just putting the place back together and really being a key part of that when people had come and gone and you really had to sort of obviously start from scratch, and he did. And just the pride that he had in WYES, obviously it kept him there for so long. Something about that place that kept him there, and the love for the work that he did over the years I think is special and we should remember that too.
He's always got something funny to say. It's like his own language.
He introduced me to the term for crew lunch, which he lovingly called the gut bomb, and I've served many of those to him over the years.
Woof! And that means as you're moving something, stop right there.
Smile or move, which means somebody walked into a shot that wasn't supposed to be in the shot and he wants you out, or smiling.
To spreckleize something. If something was in the background and needed a highlight, you need to throw a spreckleizer on it.
Inflamed sores and stepping in it?
Well, one of my favorite Paul Combel isms is, floor's ready. And of course, as a reminder to upstairs.
I don't know what the production team is going to do upstairs in the control room without your voice coming over the headset saying, you ready, you ready, you ready? before Andy can even get upstairs.
Paul, we all know that the floor is ready. You don't have to keep repeating it.
WYES is never WYES. It's always the foundation. Well, the foundation should be doing this, or I can't believe the foundation didn't do that.
If ever we needed a little spacer or to tilt something up, we had to get the, what was it, a fabricated flevostat.
And there has to be a variegated philodendron.
Variegated Euonymus.
Don't worry, Paul, we have a variegated begonia on standby just in case.
Focusing fluid, which means beer.
I'm okay, you okay? I'm okay, you okay? I'm okay, you okay?
We all came up of the same generation, and it's hard to believe that we're moving on now to retirement.
One thing that I really wanted to tell Paul, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you still owe me, and Dave Frantz and Dave Landry and your brother and everybody else, the lasagna dinner from when we put the roof on your house on Stanford Street in 1980. It's 2016, Paul. Lasagna dinner, remember? You remember? I do. We all do.
We still need you, Paul. But I hope you enjoy this time with your lovely wife and your wonderful family out there in the pass, on the coast. Enjoy that retirement, and God knows I hope you have many, 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 many Miller times to come.
Paul, you have helped define how people think about WYES for the last 45 years. You've told your stories without any words at all, through the camera and through the beautiful cinematography that you've contributed to so many of our shows over the years. And that is going to be missed, my friend, and you are going to be missed. And I wish you a very, very happy and well-deserved retirement. Lots of love.
I don't often paraphrase Julie Andrews, but Paul, my wish for you is that you're able to do a few of your favorite things, and I know that you will, between fishing and hanging out in the Gulf Coast and building things and having fun with Joni and your children and your grandchildren. I know you'll fill those days.
For the few years that I've been here, I have enjoyed our relatively early morning talks, because you always get in well before 8 o'clock or so, and you usually poke your head in my office, and we've had some wonderful conversations, and I really have appreciated those. I also want to let you know that you are leaving a mark, not only as being a fantastic member of the WYES staff, you are leaving a mark with New Orleans because of all of the fabulous photography, the videos that you've shot. You're part of the story of New Orleans, because WYES is New Orleans storyteller, and they couldn't have done it without you. So I really appreciate everything that you've done throughout all the years, and I want to wish you nothing but the very best in a fabulous retirement. We're going to miss you, Paul.
It's been a great 41 years, and we wish you very well in your retirement, and all the best to you and Joni.
Paul, I've really enjoyed working with you and knowing you for the last 34 years, and I promise I'll come to your house on the coast and get your security system on the internet.
Dad, good luck with your retirement. There's many guys that owe a tremendous debt of gratitude. You've gotten so many people into this business, and you've taught them the right way. Personally, I thank you, and I just wish you the best, man. I think you're going to have more time on your hands to continue to hustle and get everything straight on the coast that you want to get straight.
I'm sure you'll be freelancing and still in the business, but I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you, Pop. And yeah, I appreciate you getting me into business. It's a great business, man, and it seems like a nice little family down here, and we're niched in the right way, and I'm niched in the right way because of you, and I appreciate it.
Paul, thanks for all the wisdom you've shared over the years. Thanks for all your great cinematography, and I wish you the best.
I wish you an ice chest full of Miller Lite and another ice chest full of fresh fish.
I wish you a long, healthy retirement filled with lots of beer, grilled fish, and big jackpots at the casino.
Paul, it's been a great run. I wish you all the best. Thank you for everything you taught me. Thank you for the laughs. On behalf of all of us who've watched all the work you did over the years and took the work you did and edited it and produced it into something special, thank you very much. I think of the legacy you've left, not just for the station, for your family, for all the Combels that are now in the business, carrying the torch in many different ways. Thank you for that and for all that you've given to us and to the business. I will say that I talked to someone at WWL, mentioned Paul Combel is retiring. I said he quit working 6 years ago, but he is finally retiring. They knew exactly what I meant. Thanks again. Best of luck to you. Got to go now. It's 5 o'clock. This is cutting into my drinking time. Love you, Paul.
46 years later, couldn't find a job, but hey, who's counting? But we had a lot of fun. Had a lot of kicks. I'll miss you, Paul, but I still want the lasagna dinner.
Now that you're retired, I'd consider hiring you to maybe either be my jib assist or to wrap some cable for me. I think that you're the man for the job.
Paul, I'm sorry I can't be there to wish you well and fond farewell. But you know how the freelance world is, you take the jobs when you can get it. If I was just working for David and David wanted me something to do, I would just say,
I don't know why George does stuff like that. I give apologies to everyone at Channel 12 who's watching this, to Paul and to Joni, on behalf of Video Jones. Happy retirement, Paul. And Joni, you know that honey-do list you've been talking about? I think he's ready for it.
So the other night, Paul, I was on a heroic amount of both Scotch and Adderall, and I messed around with the Ouija board, and I was asked to relay a message to you from beyond the grave. I think you'll know who it's from. He said he always liked to close with a good laugh. Have a good one.